Hey guys, welcome to our seller series. This one is called To Sell or Not to Sell. That is the question.
Hey everyone, welcome to The Buzz, Coffee and Real Estate. We are jumping into a series I'm super excited about. This is just a seller's guide series. So telling you from step A to step Z how to sell your house. And really, if we're going to back up, we really kind of need to start with the why.
That's right.
Because you may not really need to sell your house. And, you know, of course, if you talk with a realtor, you absolutely need to sell. Well, because they're going to make money, right? But it really is a good idea to take a step back and say, what are the reasons? So kind of throw some of the, let's start this churning up this process a little bit. Help me understand some of the reasons people might want to sell that we encounter.
Sure. Well, I mean, you got probably 3 or 4 different topics. We'll just kind of give you the layout. But the first one's, of course, going to be market. What's the market doing? Is it fast? Is it slow? Am I going to make more money? So forth. The other is, of course, life changes.
Gotcha.
You know, you might be first-time home buyer, then you're into your, empty nester, or you're kind of in that middle with a big family. Mm-hmm. So there's always going to be that change there. It could be that your life has changed.
Gotcha.
You know, maybe now you're divorced and you're single, and
right.
or your job changes, or you move in, or something.
Aging
like that.
Parent needs to move in with you,
Totally.
or maybe your health has changed, so the format or structure of your house needs to change. Could be a job transfer.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, well, you mentioned market, and that's a very real thing for a lot of people right now. Is we're doing a lot of value estimates for people.
That's right.
Because a lot of people have got a ton of equity in their house from the last few years. And so does it make sense to cash out that equity, make that profit, and then turn around and do something with it?
Yep.
And so that's a good reason to consider there. You might be selling, and not because your house doesn't work for you, but because you need or want that cash to go do something else.
Exactly.
And then, totally, you're going to see that natural from, first-time home buyer to a move up. Maybe it's even a third house as they're established in their family or their career. And then this sort of, looping back down to, hey, we wanted more land and more house 10, 15 years ago. Now we need less land and less house, or we need to move on to one level, or first floor master, or all those sorts of things. And then, like you said, sometimes you just have stuff that happens.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you could have medical conditions and different things that'll come up. But, I mean, ultimately, you're at this point where you're asking the question because something has shifted, something has changed. And so, therefore, we just want to help identify what that thing is. Because in a lot of cases, what we'll see is somebody says, hey, I'm going from a first-time home buyer into a family home. I've got kids and so forth. Yep. And the real question is it that the house doesn't work, or it just needs more space, or that it needs to be updated, or you're just tired of the location or the yard or whatever? Like, what is it? Is it something that can be changed?
Right.
Or is it something that, there's no way to use this house?
Yeah, I think it's okay if the answer is I'm just bored with this house.
Yeah. That's
okay. But understand that to sell and to pay commissions and the process of moving and packing and all of that is going to be thousands of dollars. So
that's right.
Be willing to, realize if it's just I'm tired of the house. Now, don't use the excuse of, well, I don't like the format of the shower and the master, or something like that. Like, those things can be changed for a few $1,000s.
Cheaper than what you pay commission on.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to pay a real estate agent and we'll talk. We're actually going to do another section that talks a little more in detail about all that different stuff. But do you want to pay a real estate agent or an iBuyer program, or go through the headache of selling it yourself, or all those different options because you're bored with it, or because maybe you just need to upgrade the countertops? Or I talked with a seller one time, and he said, I really need to move closer to town.
Yeah.
I dug into it. Well, he needed to move closer to town because the internet wasn't fast enough.
That's right.
Well, shoot, for you're going to invest a couple of grand into a high-powered extender for your service, or maybe you need to, talk with your company about getting a higher internet out there.
That's right.
Like, there are ways of doing it. Don't move because just a slow internet.
Yep.
If that's the only reason you're moving. And he was going to have to repaint his house and everything. And so make sure that your reason is a legitimate reason.
Yeah.
And I've got some extended family in the Raleigh area. They've done a great job over the years of, they had aging parents that needed to move in with them. Cool. They took some of the equity of their house and built a little mother-in-law suite onto the little wing, off of it. And they stayed in their house instead of, oh, no, we got to move just so we can accommodate this other family member. So I guess what we're saying is you have options.
That's right. Right? Totally have options. And, don't make a rash decision, something that you really want to think in, pray in.
Yeah. It's not a fast decision. But some very legitimate. So let's talk some very legitimate kind of can't change it.
Sure.
Reasons, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for instance, it's like I need more space, but, I can't take the roof off and put a second story on because I don't have space on the sides, or I can't extend from the back, or, things like that. Or it's just going to be a really large cost to do those things.
Sure.
And that's when, you kind of weigh your options, right? So this particular video is that. It's, okay, let's put everything kind of on the scales here. Which one makes more sense for me? Should I sell or should I not sell?
Right.
And so asking the right questions, knowing the right people, because you may be that person like, I'm not handy. I can't do it myself.
Yep.
And so now I got to pay somebody to do it. So it's going to be costly. And, it may not be that costly. It may be that you just don't know the right people.
Sure.
And we can connect you with those people and so forth. So not that we're talking you out of selling a home, but at the same time, we are kind of, we want you to really think through the process, because the last thing we want to do is go in and list the house and then you have seller's remorse. Because now you're like, well, now I got to buy something, but nothing measures up to the house that we had before.
If we just fenced in the backyard, we probably would have been okay.
Exactly.
So, lack of land, that's another very real possibility. You need more land for kids, dogs, new projects, whatever. It's very rare that you can go buy a chunk of land that touches yours. It does happen, but it's rare.
Yeah.
So that's a very real, legitimate thing. And I would say job transfer is a very real legitimate thing too, but also understand that in this virtual world, we've had people before that, okay, well, I'm now too far away from my job. I'm going to be driving 5 days a week. Okay, awesome. Before you sell your house, can you negotiate with your job to only be commuting maybe 2 days and work remotely 3 days? Get a little co-working space. And so just think outside the box when it comes to that. And I would say typically our sellers, the ones that there's a legitimate need to make a move, it's because it's a combination of 2 or more of those reasons. Hey, we're growing out of the house and I got a job transfer across town. Hey, we're growing out of the house and I don't like the school systems that my kids are going to be going into. Mm-hmm. And so if you start to end up with 2 or 3 of those types of reasons, awesome. Let's list the place. Let's get you as much, we're going to take great care of you. But when Josh and I talked about it, we're challenged. Like, this is really the first step.
That's totally it.
The first step is let's talk you out of actually selling your house in the first place, because it's a big headache and it's a big expense.
Well, and totally, if I can talk you out of it, then you weren't really serious in the first place, and you will have that seller's remorse.
Sure, you will. Or you would have the seller's remorse either after it closed, or we've had situations, and this is horrible, where you have seller's remorse in the middle. Oh my gosh, it went under contract. I don't know if I want to sell. There's not a great way for a seller to wake up one morning and just back out of the contract.
Yeah.
The buyer can back out and lose their earnest money or due diligence. We did a podcast on that, talking about the different phases of how much risk a buyer has. But a seller, we're talking a potential for lawsuit. Yeah. If a seller just wakes up one day and says, hey, I know that I contracted to sell this house and it's supposed to close in 4 days and all of that, but I just don't want to sell. So you need to understand it's a very big decision to sell a house, to list it, to get it on the market, all of that. So if that's something that there are legitimate reasons to do it, we're excited to do it. But is there anything else that you know of that you can think of that jumps out to you as far as things that people might need to be thinking about? Because actually one aspect of that, we talked about the market. One thing that comes to my mind that I'll throw over to you is the value of somebody's home, understanding the value of their home.
Totally.
Because that might determine whether they have the money to make a move or whether they need to cash it out, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's probably one of the first things that you need to look at is, how much equity do you have in your house? If you were to sell it, is it going to be an asset to you, or is it going to be something? Because most people, and I've had sellers call me, oh, I want to sell my house. I've got $20,000 worth of equity. Well, what they don't realize is that in most cases, it's at least 10 grand to sell the house. It may be more than that, depending on, what the commission structure is.
Sure.
But that $10,000, now you're, oh, well, I'm only going to make $10,000. And it's like, well, then you have some closing fees and you've got some
moving
repairs
expenses
and you got
right.
all those things.
Right.
And so it's not a cut and dry, oh, I'm just going to walk away with 20 grand.
Yep.
There is much more to it. So you really want to get an idea of an actual value. And that's not go on Zillow and get his estimate. That's not necessarily, it will give you a range.
Sure, that could be a good start. And depending on how many comps your home has, it could be fairly accurate or it could be dramatically inaccurate.
Exactly. I mean, if you're in a small neighborhood, then it might make a little bit closer sense. It'll be within range. But if you've got acreage or you're out in the county or something like that, it's probably not going to be close.
Just did I did a value estimate for a potential client, and it gave me like a $200,000 range.
Yeah, variance.
This could be $400,000 or $600,000. I was like, oh my gosh, that's that doesn't give you any great information.
Yeah.
So understanding that value piece. Now, a couple of different ways that could be done. They could have a real estate agent that they know go in and do a value estimate.
Yep.
Typically, that's it's not going to be super scientific, depending on the realtor. Some are more diligent than others. We have some pretty good software to roll through it. That would be an option. That's more than just a digital online value.
Oh, totally. I mean, you've got a couple. Like you said, you got Zillow. We've got an instant evaluation tool on our website that you can use. That's just to give you pulse. Doesn't give you an exact
just going to give
number.
you a range.
Exactly.
Right. Yep.
And then, of course, I mean, really your best way to do it is to have an agent pull the comps on it and give you an exact.
Yep.
Now, I will say this, that every agent has their own way of doing it, and some are going to estimate higher and some are going to estimate lower, and there's going to be some variance there. But look at who you're hiring.
Sure. Absolutely.
Is it somebody who's been in the business a long time, or is it somebody who hasn't? That's going to be a helpful hint.
And we need to do a whole podcast on that.
Oh, totally.
Like, okay, so
interviewing your agent.
Hey, we think we're going to use a realtor, and 90% statistically, close to 90% of sellers in the U.S. will end up using a real estate agent to sell. How do you find that person?
That's right.
Don't get Uncle Bob who sells 2 homes a year, or Aunt Susie who hadn't worked in the industry in a while, but at least still has her license. Or my nephew Jimmy who got his license 4 hours ago. So we need to. That'll be a whole discussion.
Totally.
We'll figure out good ways of because we've got that series set, and so tune in, keep an eye out for that episode coming. But what you're saying is the value estimate really depends a lot on who's doing it, how knowledgeable they are.
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, if you're, like you said, we got a lot of cookie cutter type homes.
Yep.
If you're in one of those, you're in a neighborhood, they're all similar homes, they're all the same floor plan, so forth. It's going to be really easy to kind of find that out.
Sure.
But when you have a more unique property, something that's older, that's, it's not like anything else. Like my house, for instance, it's got a basement, it's on 6 acres. It's not your typical cookie cutter home. And so pulling comps on it is a little bit harder to find something that's fairly close.
And when you say comps, we're talking comparable homes.
That's right.
Because the value of real estate is determined by recently sold, similarly sized and featured homes that have sold recently. Typical 12 months.
Yep.
6 months is even better. But that's how appraisers and banks and everybody determines a value is, one down the street that was just like yours sold, and it had X, Y, and Z features, and yours only have X and Y features, so we're going to make a little tweaker adjustment, and now we know that yours is worth
X amount of dollars.
Right.
Exactly.
And what you're saying is you have a unique property in the county.
That's right.
And there's just not a lot around you like you.
Exactly. So, and that's the piece of the puzzle. It's more or less to give you the idea, okay, is your house cookie cutter or is it kind of an unusual?
Sure.
That's going to be where your variances are going to change when you're pulling comps or you're looking at it online or so forth.
Yeah.
So, but reach out to somebody that can actually do that for you.
Sure.
You can even go to next level and you can hire an appraiser, pay them to come out and give you an estimate.
Yeah.
And that way okay, here's, well, not really an estimate, an exact number of this is how much the house should appraise for. But that's also an opinion.
It's an opinion, and you can have 3 appraisers come out, and they're going to give slightly different figures. But I was going to say that. I'm glad you mentioned it because the advantage to that, the disadvantage to that is it's going to cost you several $100s.
Yep.
The advantage to it is they don't have a dog in the fight,
Yep.
and so they're not going to sell your house for you. So you do have to avoid this trick of the realtor trade, which unfortunately is out there. A lot of low-integrity agents, they'll come in and they'll say, your house is worth, and they'll give you an inflated number, way higher than what's actually worth. because they want you to list with them because they're seen as, oh, they're going to get me more money. Then they get you to sign on the dotted line and they get you listed, and it's a lot easier psychologically to go back to your seller. Oh, Mr. Seller, it looks like the market has shifted and adjusted, and I know we said we could get 400, but now we got to drop it right back down to fair market value.
Exactly.
Right where they were. It's a bait and switch. It's manipulative. I'm sorry it exists, but it does. And so keep an eye out there. If you're starting to get this really inflated figure from a particular agent that just doesn't feel quite right, it's not quite right.
That's right. Well, which is, like I said, we'll talk about it more in the video, but that's interviewing your agents.
Absolutely.
Interview a couple of people.
Sure.
Don't just go with the first guy that you know.
Yep.
But at the same time, like you said, the appraisal's a piece of that. The other element is, and this is one that most people don't think about, is the inspection process. You want to know kind of what's going on with your house. Mm-hmm. So if your house isn't immaculate and it wasn't built 3 days ago, mm-hmm. then there's going to be issues. There's going to be things that are come into play. And as we've seen, markets shift all the time. You can be in sellers markets, you can be in buyers market. It really doesn't matter, but there's always going to be some element of negotiation from the inspection. So you may come in and you've got 5 or 6 issues that you're aware of, and those things may get called upon mm-hmm. to be repaired or fixed or cash or whatever to fix that issue. And so that may be something that, you're thinking in your mind, and we all do this, we're probably all guilty of it. Well, my house is worth $400,000 and I only owe $300,000, so I'm going to make $100,000. Yep. And it's like, well, then you got this, and this, and this, and then you haven't gotten it under contract yet. Yeah. It's not set stone until you walk across the closing table.
Yep.
And it's signed and it's done. That's when you know how much money you're going to make. Right. So it has the ability to change. So be open to the flexibility of that. Yep. And just because we give you a list price doesn't mean it's going to close at list price. Sure. It may drop. It may go over. There's different markets and so forth.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And a lot of times we like presenting that in sort of a 2 or 3 pricing model. Hey, right. If you really need to get that job changed, let's say you're driving an hour and a half to work, and at least in this area of the country, that's a long way. Up in D.C., that's pretty normal. But an hour and a half to work, hey, I need to get this thing gone. Okay, cool. We need to put it at this price. Hey, I'm okay with the thing sitting for some months. I'm looking for the perfect storm buyer, really one who's going to give me like the toppest of the top dollar. Okay, cool, we can place it here, but understand the implications of that and that we're going to need to drop the price progressively if we don't find that person. Or what people typically do is somewhere kind of in the middle there, find that happy medium. And that allows them to move on, getting it sold, but it doesn't go stale.
Yep.
So anyway, all that to say, the pricing is an art form, mm-hmm. whether it's an appraiser or a realtor.
Yep.
Certainly you can use digital technology that'll kind of throw some numbers and some ranges at you, but that's a really important piece because that's going to determine, okay, if I do sell, do I have the money to go do something else?
Exactly.
To do what I want to do? Do I maybe need to stick in this house for another year or two and kind of sweat it out so that I can put myself in that good position?
That's right. Yeah, no, I think those are all pivotal pieces kind of that kind of, I think, wrap up the video in some element.
Yeah.
This is kind of that starting point of let's have the conversation. Let's work through this stuff together. So, if you guys have questions in this video, leave us a comment. We'd love to be able to answer some of your questions. If you're just looking for, a property evaluation, we'll put that also into the description below.
Yep.
That way you can actually see kind of what we're talking about and get some variance there. But at the same time, if you just have simple questions or you need some contractors or you need different things and you're in our area, let us know and we can connect you with those people so you can get estimates. You can find out what options are available.
Right. We do get to work with a lot of folks in a lot of different fields of construction and remodel. And so if you decide, hey, the best option really is probably going to be for me just to upgrade that kitchen or that bathroom or add that extra room on the house, let us know because we really want to point you towards somebody that has a lot of integrity and will do what they say they're going to do there. Even if we're not selling the house, we're not making a penny off of that. And they're not paying us to give them referrals. We don't work that way either, but at least we know that you're taken care of. And then down the road, if you ever decide to make a move, we'd love the opportunity to give it a shot and be able to have a chance to help you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you will subscribe to our channel, go ahead and hit the bell icon so that you get our notifications every single time a new video hits. If you know anybody that's thinking about selling, go ahead and send them this video so that they can get the process kind of started. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Sounds good.